Imagine holding a history book in your hands, but when you open it, half the pages are torn out. Not just a few pages, entire chapters, maybe even half the book. You can see the beginning clearly, and you can read the ending, but the middle? It's just gone. Now imagine that book is the story of human civilization, and the missing pages represent 2,000 years of our ancestors' lives, their achievements, their struggles, and their secrets. This isn't fiction. This is reality. Welcome to the greatest mystery in human history. 2,000 years of civilization that existed, thrived, and then vanished so completely that we barely know they were there. Cities that rivaled Rome in grandeur, now buried under jungles and sand. Technology so advanced they wouldn't be reinvented for centuries, lost forever. Entire empires that rose and fell without leaving their names in any history book. Today we're going to walk through those missing chapters, piece together the fragments of a puzzle that historians have been trying to solve for generations, and discover why these lost centuries might be the most important story never told. The silent stretch of time. Let's start with something that should terrify anyone who thinks about it too deeply. When you look at a timeline of human civilization, certain periods shine brightly. We know ancient Egypt inside and out, the pharaohs, the pyramids, the daily life of farmers along the Nile. We understand Mesopotamia, with its ziggurats and cuneiform tablets recording everything from kings' victories to grocery lists. The Indus Valley civilization comes into focus with its sophisticated city planning and mysterious script. Then centuries later, we see Greece and Rome dominating the stage, their stories told and retold until we feel like we were there ourselves. But between these bright spots, there's darkness. Not the darkness of prehistory, when humans were still learning to use fire and stone tools. No, this is something far stranger. This is the darkness that falls after the light has already been lit. Picture a great bonfire burning in the night, illuminating everything around it. Then suddenly, without warning, someone throws a bucket of water on the flames. The light doesn't go out completely, but it dims so much that you can barely see your hand in front of your face. That's what happened to human civilization during these lost centuries. The Great Silence, as some historians call it, isn't because people stopped living. Archaeological evidence proves that humans were everywhere during this time, building settlements, farming land, raising children, creating art. But somehow their stories didn't survive. It's as if an entire symphony orchestra played a magnificent concert, but no one wrote down the music. No one recorded the performance. And now all we have are a few scattered notes and the fading memory of people who claim they heard something beautiful once, long ago. Why does this silence exist? The reasons are as varied as they are disturbing. Some civilizations were destroyed so completely by war that nothing remained. Others fell victim to catastrophic climate changes, droughts that turned fertile valleys into deserts, floods that buried cities under layers of sediment, earthquakes that toppled every building and scattered the survivors to the winds. Some societies simply stopped writing things down, whether by choice or because they lost the knowledge of how to do it. And some, perhaps most mysteriously, left records that we simply cannot read, scripts carved in stone or pressed into clay that mock us with their incomprehensibility, holding secrets we may never unlock. Cities swallowed by time. Now let's talk about something that should make your imagination run wild. Hidden beneath the jungles of Southeast Asia, buried under the sands of the Sahara, drowned beneath the waters of the Mediterranean, and concealed under the streets of modern cities, there are ruins. Not just any ruins, entire cities, complete with streets, temples, marketplaces, and houses. Cities that once bustled with life, where merchants haggled over prices, where children played in the alleys, where priests performed ceremonies to gods whose names we'll never know. In recent decades, technology has revolutionized our ability to find these lost places. Satellites orbiting Earth can detect subtle differences in vegetation that indicate buried structures below. Ground-penetrating radar can map entire city layouts without digging a single shovel of dirt. LiDAR technology, which uses laser pulses to measure distances, can strip away the visual clutter of jungle canopy to reveal ancient roads, pyramids, and urban grids that have been hidden for over 1,000 years. What these technologies have revealed is staggering. In Cambodia, LiDAR showed that the area around Angkor Wat wasn't just a temple complex, but a sprawling medieval metropolis that might have been the largest city in the world at its time. In Central America, similar scans revealed that Maya civilization was far more extensive than anyone imagined, with cities and settlements connected by sophisticated road networks stretching across hundreds of miles. In the Amazon rainforest, once thought to be too inhospitable for large-scale civilization, evidence of massive pre-Columbian societies is emerging. Societies that modified the landscape itself, creating fertile dark earth and managing forests like giant gardens. But here's what keeps archaeologists awake at night. For every city we've found, how many more remain hidden? How many names of great kings and queens have been lost to time? Imagine a ruler who built monuments that rivaled the pyramids, who commanded armies that conquered vast territories, who patronized artists and poets whose works would have stood alongside the Iliad and the Epic of Gilgamesh. Now imagine that ruler's name, their entire civilization, completely forgotten. Not diminished, not relegated to footnotes, utterly erased from human memory. That's the reality of these lost centuries. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a site that's just been discovered. The jungle has been cleared away, and before you lies a city that hasn't been seen by human eyes in 1,500 years. Stone buildings emerge from the earth, their carved facades still bearing traces of paint. A main street runs through the center, wide enough for ceremonial processions. On either side, you can see what were once shops, homes, perhaps government buildings. In the distance, a temple pyramid rises above the canopy, its summit lost in clouds. Who built this place? What language did they speak? What did they believe in? What made them laugh? What made them cry? What gave their lives meaning? We may never fully know. Fragments of forgotten lives. Let me tell you about what archaeologists actually find when they excavate these sites, because it's both fascinating and heartbreaking. They don't find neat libraries with carefully preserved books explaining everything. They find fragments, a piece of pottery with a decoration that might indicate trade with a distant land, a skeleton showing signs of disease that swept through the population, a carved figurine that could be a child's toy or a religious idol, a layer of ash suggesting a catastrophic fire, a sudden abandonment with personal belongings left behind, as if the inhabitants fled in panic. These fragments are like puzzle pieces scattered across time. Imagine trying to assemble a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle, but you only have 50 pieces, and you're not even sure they're all from the same puzzle. That's the challenge facing researchers studying these lost centuries. Every shard of pottery, every bone, every carved stone is a clue, but the full picture remains maddeningly incomplete. Take this example. In a desert excavation, archaeologists found a burial site where bodies were arranged in unusual positions. The first interpretation was that this represented some kind of ritual burial, perhaps a religious practice unique to this culture. But further analysis revealed something more chilling. The bodies showed signs of having died suddenly and in distress. Chemical analysis of the soil suggested a rapid environmental change, perhaps a massive dust storm or a poisonous gas release from geological activity. These weren't ritual burials. These were people who died together, catastrophically, and were buried by survivors or covered naturally by shifting sands. An entire community wiped out in moments, their story reduced to bones arranged in sand. Or consider the discovery of ancient workshops, where metalworkers created objects of stunning sophistication. The techniques used were so advanced that modern craftspeople struggle to replicate them. Yet these workshops appear suddenly in the archaeological record, flourish for a few generations, and then vanish. The knowledge that created them seems to have disappeared completely, only to be slowly, painfully reinvented centuries or even millennia later. How did they know what they knew? Where did they learn these techniques? And why, when their civilization fell, did no one preserve this knowledge? Technologies lost to time. Speaking of knowledge, let's dive into one of the most fascinating and frustrating aspects of these lost centuries: the technologies that were developed, perfected, and then completely forgotten. We're not talking about simple tools here. We're talking about sophisticated engineering that wouldn't be matched for hundreds of years. Consider ancient irrigation systems discovered in the Middle East and South Asia that demonstrate an understanding of hydraulics, water pressure, and landscape management that rivals modern engineering. Some of these systems could move water uphill without pumps, using nothing but clever design and an intimate understanding of natural forces. Farmers using these systems could grow crops in areas that should have been too dry, supporting large populations and creating surplus for trade. Then the systems fell into disuse. The knowledge of how to maintain them was lost, and regions that once fed thousands became barren wastelands. Or look at metallurgical achievements that boggle the mind. The Damascus steel swords of medieval times, famous for their strength and ability to hold an edge, were made using techniques that modern metallurgists have only recently begun to understand. But Damascus steel itself was trying to recreate something even older. Methods of creating superior metal alloys that existed in various ancient cultures and were lost to time. In some cases, we find artifacts that shouldn't exist according to our understanding of technological development, tools requiring precision that shouldn't have been possible with the available technology, alloys that suggest knowledge of chemistry and material science that was supposed to develop much later. The same pattern appears in construction. We know the Romans had concrete that could set underwater and has proven more durable than modern concrete in many applications. The recipe was lost for over 1,000 years. Ancient builders in various parts of the world constructed massive stone structures using blocks weighing hundreds of tons, fitted together so precisely that you can't slip a knife blade between them. How they moved these blocks, how they achieved such precision, remains debated. The techniques were clearly known, clearly practiced, and then clearly forgotten. Why? Why does technology disappear? In some cases, the knowledge was held by specialist guilds or families who passed secrets down through generations. If those families were killed in war, died in plague, or simply failed to have children to pass the knowledge to, the secrets died with them. In other cases, societal collapse meant that the infrastructure needed to practice these technologies, the mines, the workshops, the trade networks, simply ceased to exist. It's like losing the ability to make smartphones, not because we forgot the theory, but because all the factories, supply chains, and electrical grids disappeared overnight. Empires that erased the past. Now we need to talk about something uncomfortable. Sometimes history isn't lost by accident. Sometimes it's deliberately erased. When one empire conquers another, the victors often set about systematically destroying the cultural identity of the conquered. Temples are torn down, libraries are burned, monuments are defaced, and the very language of the defeated people is suppressed. This happened repeatedly during the lost centuries. The great empires of Rome, Persia, Byzantium, and others expanded relentlessly, absorbing smaller kingdoms and tribal territories. In the process, countless local cultures were obliterated. We know these smaller civilizations existed because we can see traces of them. In place names that don't match the conqueror's language, in myths and legends that hint at older stories, in artistic styles that suddenly appear and then disappear, in genetic markers showing that populations were more diverse than historical records suggest. Imagine being part of a small kingdom that has existed for centuries. You have your own language, your own gods, your own traditions passed down through generations. You have stories about how your people came to this land, about the great heroes who founded your cities, about the wisdom of your ancestors. Then an empire arrives with its armies, and within a generation, your language is forbidden. Your children are taught in the conqueror's tongue. Your temples are converted to worship the conqueror's gods. Your own history becomes dangerous to remember, something whispered about in private, but never spoken aloud in public. Within a few generations, even those whispers fade. The history of your people survives only as myths told by the conquerors. Distorted, fragmented, reduced to footnotes if mentioned at all. This cultural erasure means that even when we find physical evidence of these lost civilizations, the ruins, the artifacts, the remains, we often have no context for understanding them. We're like someone who finds a photograph from a family they don't know. We can see faces, we can make guesses about relationships, but we'll never know their names, their stories, what they meant to each other, what they hoped for, what they feared. When the rivers change their course, Let's shift gears and talk about something that might seem less dramatic than war and conquest but was equally devastating: environmental change. Many of the lost civilizations were built along rivers, in fertile valleys, in regions that seemed perfectly suited for human habitation. And then the environment changed. Rivers are like liquid history. They nourish civilizations, enable trade, provide irrigation, serve as highways for goods and ideas. Ancient cities clustered along riverbanks for good reason. But rivers are also restless. Over decades and centuries, they shift their courses. A river that flows past your city walls today might be 10 miles away tomorrow, or might have carved a new channel right through what used to be your main temple. Consider this scenario. A great city thrives for generations on the banks of a mighty river. Boats come and go constantly, bringing goods from upstream and downstream. The river's annual floods deposit nutrient-rich silt on farmland, ensuring abundant harvests. Fish provide protein, water for drinking, and irrigation flows freely. The city grows wealthy, builds monuments, becomes a center of learning and culture. Then the climate changes. Maybe it's a shift in weather patterns. Maybe it's deforestation upstream, changing how water flows. Maybe it's geological activity altering the landscape. Whatever the cause, the rainfall pattern shifts. The annual floods stop coming. The river level drops. Eventually, the river abandons its channel entirely, finding a new path to the sea dozens of miles away. What happens to the city? At first, people try to adapt. They dig wells, they ration water, they try to maintain their way of life. But without the river's abundance, crops fail. Trade routes that depended on river transport collapse. Population declines as people move away seeking better conditions. Buildings fall into disrepair. Within a generation or two, the great city is a shell of its former self. Within a few more, it's abandoned entirely. Sand or jungle creeps over the ruins. Centuries pass. The river's old channel becomes invisible, filled in by sediment or overgrown by vegetation. Future archaeologists finding the ruins might puzzle over why anyone would build a major city in such an inhospitable location, never realizing that when the city thrived, the environment was completely different. This pattern of environmental change destroying civilizations repeated across the globe during the lost centuries. Droughts lasting decades turned fertile regions into deserts. Rising seas drowned coastal settlements. Volcanic eruptions buried entire regions under ash. Earthquakes toppled cities and diverted water sources. Each disaster created refugees, disrupted trade networks, ended cultural traditions, and erased chunks of human history. The languages that died in silence. Here's something that should make you appreciate the language you're hearing right now. Every language is a unique way of seeing the world, a unique structure for thinking about reality. When a language dies, an entire worldview disappears with it. And during the lost centuries, hundreds, maybe thousands of languages vanished without leaving more than traces. Many ancient societies were entirely oral. They had no writing system. Their history, their accumulated knowledge, their poetry and stories existed only in human memory, passed from generation to generation through careful teaching and repetition. This oral tradition could preserve astonishing amounts of information. Cultures with oral traditions developed techniques like rhythmic verse, storytelling formulas, and mnemonic devices to help people remember vast amounts of material accurately. But oral tradition is fragile. If a society is destroyed rapidly, by plague, by war, by natural disaster, the knowledge dies with the people. There's no library to burn because the library existed in living minds. Once those minds are gone, the knowledge is irretrievable. Imagine that every book, every website, every piece of recorded information in the world existed only in the memories of specific people. Now imagine that most of those people die suddenly. That's what happened repeatedly during the lost centuries. Even societies that did develop writing weren't safe. We found countless inscriptions in languages we cannot read, scripts that look systematic and sophisticated, clearly representing language, but we lack the key to unlock them. The Indus Valley script has been studied for nearly a century, and we still can't definitively read it. Linear A from Crete remains undeciphered. Countless other scripts from smaller, less famous civilizations are completely mysterious. Each undeciphered script represents countless lost stories. Legal codes, religious texts, historical chronicles, personal letters, poetry, songs, all encoded in symbols we can see but cannot understand. It's like finding a locked diary from someone who lived 2,000 years ago. You know the secrets are right there, written down, preserved. But the key is lost, and without it, those secrets might as well not exist. Technology unveiling the invisible. But here's where the story gets exciting. We're living in a golden age of discovery when it comes to these lost centuries. Technology that didn't exist even 20 years ago is revolutionizing archaeology and changing our understanding of ancient history. Satellite imagery has become so sophisticated that archaeologists can now detect ancient structures from space. Subtle differences in how plants grow, in soil composition, in ground moisture levels can indicate buried ruins below. What once would have required decades of painstaking survey work can now be done in months by analyzing satellite data. DNA analysis has become a powerful historical tool. By extracting and sequencing ancient DNA from bones and teeth, scientists can trace population movements, interbreeding between groups, and genetic continuity or disruption. Recent studies have revealed surprising connections between populations that were thought to be unrelated, suggesting trade networks, migrations, and cultural exchanges that left no other trace. Ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR, and other remote sensing technologies are peeling back layers of earth and vegetation without disturbing them. We can now map entire buried cities before ever digging a test trench. We can see patterns in ancient landscapes that are invisible from ground level. We're discovering that human civilization was far more widespread and sophisticated during the lost centuries than traditional archaeology suggested. Chemical analysis of artifacts and residues is revealing details of ancient life that would have been impossible to determine otherwise. We can identify what people ate, what diseases they suffered from, what raw materials they traded, even what substances they used in religious ceremonies. We can trace trade goods back to their sources, mapping economic networks that span continents. Every new discovery raises as many questions as it answers. Each buried city found prompts us to wonder how many more remain hidden. Each new piece of evidence for sophisticated ancient cultures makes us reconsider our assumptions about the development of human civilization. The lost centuries are slowly emerging from darkness, but the more we learn, the more we realize how much we still don't know. The heartbeat of ordinary lives. Let's pause here and remember something important. When we talk about lost civilizations and forgotten empires, it's easy to focus on the grand scale, the kings and queens, the monuments and temples, the wars and conquests. But the real tragedy of the lost centuries isn't that we don't know the names of rulers. It's that we've lost the lives of ordinary people. Among the ruins, we find traces of everyday life that make these ancient peoples suddenly real. A child's toy, maybe a doll made from clay, or a carved wooden animal. Cooking pots still containing residue from the last meal prepared in them thousands of years ago. Gaming pieces suggesting that people in the ancient world played games for entertainment, just like we do. Musical instruments indicating that they made music, sang songs, celebrated with dance. Jewelry and cosmetics showing that they cared about how they looked, that they wanted to be beautiful, that they valued adornment. These artifacts are heartbreaking in their familiarity. They remind us that the people of the lost centuries weren't mysterious aliens. They were humans just like us. They fell in love and had their hearts broken. They worried about their children's futures. They argued with their neighbors. They laughed at jokes and cried at funerals. They had friends they cherished and rivals they resented. They had hopes and dreams and fears just like we do. When we find a house that was abandoned suddenly, with personal possessions left behind, we can almost feel the panic of the people who lived there. What made them flee? What catastrophe or threat was approaching that made them leave behind the accumulated possessions of a lifetime? When we find careful burials with grave goods, food, tools, treasured objects, we can sense the love and respect the living felt for the dead, the belief that somehow these gifts would help their loved ones in whatever came next. Why these lost years matter to you? You might be wondering at this point, why should I care about civilizations that disappeared thousands of years ago? What difference does it make to my life today, whether we understand these lost centuries or not? The answer is more important than you might think. First, these lost civilizations are part of your heritage. Unless you can trace your family tree back thousands of years with certainty, There's a decent chance that somewhere in your ancestry, there's a connection to one of these forgotten peoples. Their blood runs in your veins. Their survival through catastrophes made your existence possible. Understanding them is understanding where you came from. Second, the story of the lost centuries teaches us crucial lessons about the fragility of civilization. We live in an age of tremendous technological advancement, of global communication, of accumulated knowledge that seems permanent and unshakable. The lost centuries remind us that nothing is permanent. Great civilizations fell, sophisticated technologies were forgotten, entire ways of life vanished. If it happened to them, could it happen to us? What would future archaeologists make of our civilization if it collapsed tomorrow? What lessons from the lost centuries might help us avoid similar fates? Third, every gap we fill in our understanding of these lost years changes how we see ourselves as a species. For a long time, the prevailing view was that human civilization developed in a neat, linear progression, simple to complex, primitive to sophisticated. But the more we learn about the lost centuries, the more we realize that history isn't a straight line. It's a complex web of rises and falls, advances and retreats, discoveries and losses. Human progress isn't inevitable. It's hard-won and easily lost. Finally, there's something deeply moving about trying to resurrect these lost voices from the silence of time. Every civilization that ever existed was made up of people who thought their world would last forever, who believed their children and grandchildren would remember them, who hoped that their achievements would echo through the ages. They were wrong. They were forgotten. But we're trying to remember them again. In a way, every archaeological discovery is an act of resurrection, bringing back to life people and cultures that have been dead for millennia. The story isn't over. As we come to the end of our journey through the lost 2,000 years, one thing should be clear. The story isn't over. Right now, at this very moment, archaeologists are making discoveries that will rewrite history textbooks. Ancient cities are being uncovered. New technologies are revealing secrets hidden in artifacts we've had for decades. Genetic studies are connecting populations we never knew were related. Slowly, painstakingly, the darkness is lifting from these lost centuries. We want to remember. We need to remember. Because in remembering those who came before us, even those whose names are lost and whose faces we'll never know, we're affirming that human life matters, that the story of our species is worth telling, and that even across the vast gulf of centuries, we can still reach out and touch the lives of people who walked this earth long before we were born. The lost 2,000 years are calling out across time, asking to be remembered. And slowly, discovery by discovery, we're learning to hear their voices again.